Rob, we talked about this briefly with Michael Grady, the broadcaster for the Timberwolves. The Rudy Gobert suspension, and for those that didn't see, it was late in the third quarter, at the end of the second quarter, in the Timberwolves game against New Orleans. And I guess Kyle Anderson was going at Rudy Gobert verbally, selling him to, I think he was saying, block some shots. And then Gobert went back at him like, why don't you get some rebounds or whatever. And reportedly, according to Woj, Kyle Anderson said, shut the F up, you B. And that sparked Gobert to punch Kyle in the chest. They tried to get after each other. Nothing, they were kept away from each other. And then Gobert exited the game, was sent home, and now has been suspended for their play-in game, Rob, against the Lakers this week. So what are your thoughts on this situation?
I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are fugazi and suspending Gobert before a playoff game over an incident, Chris, that wasn't ugly. And I mean, if this was some sort of bloody,
right, absolutely,
then that's something different, Chris.
Right, I agree.
He didn't hit him in the face. One player said something. You got mad. You get the heat of the moment all the time. Like I just said up to Grady, it could have happened in the locker room, Chris, and nobody saw it. Nobody would be suspended and not play a playoff game. If you want to do something, you find the guy, have both guys give money to the community, Chris, or some situation. Right. Have those guys hash it out in front of each other publicly. Hey, I shouldn't have said that. We're both wrong. We're teammates. We're trying to win. A suspension ahead of a playing game? Absolutely ridiculous. Poppycock. Sorry, A-Rod and the other owner there in Minnesota. How do you let this happen? I'm not with this at all. I'm about discipline, Chris. I'm about making people have a punishment when the punishment fits the crime. But a suspension, and I brought up the Draymond Green thing where they didn't want him to miss ring day. So like. One team.
Right.
Am I right, Chris? Now, that was ridiculous. He punched a guy in the face.
He sucker punched somebody, and I think you're probably in agreement with me. If Gobert had, hit Anderson in the face, that's a whole nother
That's
thing.
a whole nother story. Then I could see him sitting out.
Right.
That
it was
punch,
almost a push.
It
was a punch, but a punch to the chest. It wasn't incredibly hard. Didn't look like it. That's almost like a push.
That gets you put out of a playoff game against the Lakers and Anthony
agree.
Davis?
That's why, Rob, I brought up with Mike, look, if that's Anthony Edwards, I don't think he's getting suspended. Now, I could be wrong. And I was wondering, though, Rob, do they think they can play better? And he's right, Gobert has moments. And he is unusual or unique, I should say, and he does some things really well. But, he's been a liability, and Utah, he was a liability at times in the playoffs. And obviously they gave up a ton for him. That was another thing, Rob. All that they gave up, Rob G, was it 5 draft picks that they gave? Was it 5?
Yeah. It was 4 first-rounders, a pick swap, Walker Kessler, Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Jared Vanderbilt.
It was a big trade.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's half the Lakers squad.
That's right. There.
Beasley and Vanderbilt, that's helped turn them around. They gave up all of that, and you're suspending him for a game. And I totally agree. Come on.
The punishment doesn't fit the crime, Chris.
It should have been a fine, and that's it. And also, I'm going to be honest. What he reportedly said to Gobert, you gotta respond in some way. I'm not saying you have to be violent, but when somebody calls you out like that, it's hard to just sit there and take it. It really is. And so, you don't need to be talking to teammates like that unless you just can't be talking to dudes like that.
Nah, and I don't know what message they're trying to send to the rest of the team, Chris, that You don't have disagreements. You know this, Chris.
They know that, right?
You and your
Don't you
brother used to fight, right?
Absolutely. All the time.
Like, let's just keep it real. Like, things like that happen. I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned that they pulled that card in front of a playing game. I'm stunned.
I totally agree. I completely. I don't think anybody would have criticized them. I mean, there might have been a few. But for the most part, Rob, I think people would have understood. You could have fined him. Heck, like you said it, Draymond Green's what he did, and we've both heard from covering the league years, Rob. You have fights in practice.
Yes, it happens all the time.
In the locker room, whatever. But what Draymond did was unusual because he sucker punched the guy.
And Chris,
usually guys will square up. It's a fair fight or something. But he sucker punched the guy and didn't get a suspension.
And you remember
it was away from the team, but that was almost voluntary.
Right, and it was like so that they didn't like embarrass him. Like, they didn't call it a suspension.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he was like, well, I stepped away from the team as if he had a choice and the team couldn't do anything to him. They didn't want to paint it in a certain way. And then when I found out it was all because they wanted him there for ring day, I'm just like,
you could have had suspended him another game.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, he should have been suspended. And now I don't even think just one game. I mean, that was bad what Draymond did. Maybe, it looks like maybe they've gotten past it, but Rob, I'm with you. This just didn't, to me, it did not deserve a suspension. Okay, in January, maybe, right? The next game's not that big of a deal. It's a regular season game. But a play-in? You gave up all that you gave up for this guy, and now you're going to be without him in a big game when you facing Anthony Davis and LeBron, who's going to be driving to the basket? And your best rim protector's gone?
And Chris, if you read the quotes from Kyle Anderson, he didn't sound like this was a suspension was coming. You know what I mean? Like it did.
You mean from Gobert or Kyle? Because Gobert apologized.
No, Kyle Anderson's quotes though, but it didn't sound like he. Yeah, Rob G has him. Just listen to this.
Kyle Anderson, the guy who was the victim in all this, right? Did you say quote after the game? We'll move forward.
Yes.
We want to win games. It is what it is. We'll keep it in house. It ain't the first time someone has swung on me or temper's just flared. That's all. It is what it is.
So that's what I'm saying. He sounds like he wasn't like, I can't do nothing with this guy. I don't want that guy near me, or you know what I mean, or the team's got to act, or whatever. No, he's saying we move past it.
I don't know what kind of message you're trying to send.
I
mean, are you trying to appease your fans? I'm sorry. Like, they're grown men. Things happen. Rob, you saw it with the Clippers. Bones Highland and Miles Plumlee Mason Plumlee got into it.
Right.
And Highland pushed Plumlee in the chest. He didn't punch him, but he pushed. I haven't heard anything about that. It's just like, we moving on.
Of course, because you're not going to baby every little situation.
Right.
Tempers flare. People are competitive. If you talk smack to me, you know what I mean? You might, Chris, there's certain buzzwords that will get my attention.
I was going to ask you, I mean, do you agree with me? Like, again, I'm not necessarily saying this got to escalate to violence, but I'm sorry, to be talking to somebody like that, I mean, you can't just expect him to sit there. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet.
I'm with you,
right?
I'm with you.
You can argue, but you gonna say that?
You can't say just anything to me. And here's the other part too, Chris. The Wolves are already without their backup center. What is Reed and their best wing defender? Yeah, Nas Reed and Jaden McDaniels, their best wing defender.
He broke his hand.
Hitting the wall. What is he? Ed Woodson? He used to pitch for the Yankees. Did that? Broke his right hand, Chris, punching the wall. He's a right-handed pitcher. Like, how dumb can you be?
Well, that's like Stout. Remember, Amari did that too. Amari Stoudemire hit a fire extinguisher. Remember that? Punched through the glass. I'm sorry. I don't know what.
Maybe we're in the minority, Chris, and maybe some people out there listening, they think that we're too soft or whatever.
We're too hard. I mean,
we're too soft.
We're from a time when that could happen and you move on. Did Isaiah get suspended when he and Lambeer fought in Detroit?
I don't remember that. I don't think so.
Probably not. I'm sure he probably didn't. You know?